So, today what we're going to be doing is taking our site, which is that A4 bit of paper I gave you the other day. We're going to import it into ArchiCAD, and along the way we'll also set up our drawing, change the units, things like that. Then we're going to create a mesh and start terraforming it. We're going to start adding contours to it and changing the shape of our mesh so that it should look pretty much like what's out there in the real world. Alright, so first thing I need you to do is locate, sorry, I'll just delete that because I haven't done this yet. Locate our file, which is on Momus, landscape, land 6230. In fact, I'll just show you a quick little hint. If you want to get quick access to this folder, you can grab that folder and slide it. Okay, don't go on a file, but slide it underneath so you get that little line, and it'll create a shortcut to that folder. So you just click on that now and you go straight to the CAD folder on Momus. So you can do that for anything that's on, well, anywhere, a USB stick, as long as it's plugged in. You just click on that and you'll go straight to that folder. Just be careful, because if you landed on one of those things, it will copy that folder to the other one, which in this case will be quite disastrous because there's a lot of video in the lecture recordings. Okay. What we want though, we want the Sports Field 2013 site, which is found in the Assignment 1 files. And we're going to copy that to your Documents folder, okay? So you've got a local copy of it. You want a local copy because the hard drive is faster than the network. So whenever ArchiCAD wants to read, not so much write, but wants to, but it could be in some other case, it was files you were editing. But in this case, being able to read straight off the hard drive is going to be a lot quicker than trying to pull it off the network all the time. So we're going to drag that file to Documents. Now, it's actually working off the network might be a really good thing. Okay, if you're in a drawing office and somebody updated this file with some new modified contours or something, if you were linked to that file in ArchiCAD, you would see the update. And that could be very vital. It might be, you know, some changes to some plans. Nobody told you, but when you opened up your ArchiCAD file, all of a sudden there's all these changes on there. Okay, so in a drawing office it can actually be very beneficial linking directly to stuff on a network. Okay, because you're not the only one dealing with the project. In this case, it's only you dealing with the project, so keeping a copy of it locally is nice. Alright. If you just select it and press spacebar or double click it to open it, we can have a look. So that is the site that we're going to be modelling up. Alright, so we've got to get this into ArchiCAD. So first, let's launch ArchiCAD if you haven't already. I'm just going to change my background colour, because otherwise it's rather hard to see on the projector. You can't see my grid lines or anything. So for me, I'm going to grids and editing, grids and background, changing that to white. You don't have to do that unless you really don't like pale yellow. Okay. So has everybody got ArchiCAD open? Okay. Now there's a few other things that we want to do here. Currently the default template is putting together these north, east, south, west elevations, which our site is not going to fit inside anyway. So they're useless to us. So I'm going to select them all. Remember, click, click, all single clicks. Hit delete. And it's going to say, ooh, do you want to delete this or keep it independent or whatever? No, delete it. Then it's going to go, ooh, are you sure you really, really want to delete this? The reason it's asking me lots of times is that if I had a section and I accidentally tried to delete it, and I had spent hours dimensioning and putting little details and photos of my mum in there, I'm going to lose all my work. Okay, so it's like deleting a file off your computer. In this case, it's deleting a drawing out of your project. So they are good warnings. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to change my units to meters. Okay, because we're going to be dealing with meters all the time in here. So we're going to go up to Options, Project Preferences, Working Units. Just while I'm hovering there, you can see there's lots of other settings, so we're going to have a little look at this as well. Working Units. Now, you can come in here and change this whenever you like. You don't have to do it at the beginning of a drawing. If you also have to work on a little planting box, you can jump in there and change it to millimeters, and away you go again. So our model unit, which is currently set to millimeters, we're going to change that to meters. Now, the next question is decimals. And the decimals are currently set to 0. What that means is that our numbers will show up currently as whole meters. 5 meters, 6 meters, 12 meters. There'll be no decimal 00 after it. Okay? So we kind of want that, sometimes we're going to be using 1 or 2 decimal places. So we can change that to 2 decimal places. That doesn't mean you can't, if you had it set to 0, you can still go and grab a wall and make it 5.35 meters high. However, if you select it, it will just show as being 5 meters high, which can be a little bit confusing when you've got 2 walls, both say that they're 5 meters high and one's higher than the other. You're like, what the hell's going on? It's because you're not seeing the extra decimal places. Okay, so it's still storing the numbers accurately. It'll just show you either no decimals or 1 decimal or 2 decimal places. Okay? The layout units are set to millimeters, and we would leave it at millimeters. The layout is all to do with what goes onto the page. Okay, so when we go and print a document out, we're setting the text size as 2.5 millimeters high. We're not setting it as 50 meters high at 1 to 25,000. It's text. We always set that just as real world sizes. The thickness of pens, if we do a title block, okay, we're defining it in millimeters. Okay, it's not 0.05 of a meter long. It's 50 centimeters, 5 centimeters in that case. So generally the layout units will stay as they are. I'm going to show you some of the other stuff, although we're not going to mess with it. So this is just going, I'll do it again. Options, work environment, project preferences, dimensions. In fact, all of these things you'll see in a second will come up together. Now, we're going to do dimensioning later on, but you can see your dimensions can be different. So at the moment, we're working in meters, but if I dimension anything up, it would show up as millimeters. Okay, so, and you can change this. And once we also start talking about document management, we can have sets of drawings using different units for our dimensions. So we could have a set of drawings for the builder in meters and a set of drawings for the client in feet and inches because they're American. Okay, it's still the same drawing, same everything. Only difference is I've changed what the units are for the dimensions. So we've got a huge amount of control for that. Angles, all that sort of stuff. So we won't want to show the landscape architect our slopes and percentages, but we want to show the engineers or the client in degrees. Okay? So all of that's all very configurable. And I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but you can see there's lots of different things. Okay, how it does volumes and areas and all that sort of carry on. How it calculates spaces, blah, 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 blah. So you can explore that in your own time. And for this assignment, it's going to make no difference whatsoever. Anything else? There'll be a couple of things we might come back to for that anyway. All right, so we're working in meters. You can check if you're working in meters. This grid is a 2 meter grid. So if I hover my cursor there, I should see the X and Y as being approximately 2 by 2. If you're not seeing those palettes, you need to go Window, Palettes, Coordinate and Control box should be switched on. Okay. We don't actually need them for what I'm doing now, but just as a general rule, those two palettes are very handy. Okay. So remember, we went through them on Monday, didn't we? And what those things are for. So I'd never really. There's actually a couple of little things in there I still need to go through. Actually, that's cool. All right. So now we've got our drawing. Oh, one other thing. And again, we're going to go through stories in a lot more detail. But for now, what I want you to do is delete any other story other than the ground floor. So we're going to get rid of sea level. So just select it. You can either right-click and go delete, or you can select, say, roof and hit the little X. The reason we do that is sometimes ArchiCAD's very smart and it will go and throw things onto the next floor because you went and put some stairs, for example. Totally depends on the object. But it goes, oh, skylight, right, that'll be in the roof. That's above whatever the height of my floor is. And it'll go and throw it onto the next story. And you're trying to figure out what the hell just happened to the skylight you just put in. It shows up in 3D, but it doesn't show up on the plan because ArchiCAD is being a smart ass and decided to throw it up to the next story. So if that doesn't exist, it's not going to happen. And just as another fail-safe, again, not vital, but if I select my ground floor, see down here it's got settings. And we're going to go through this for a lot of things in the navigator in the future. But for now, just select your ground floor. And if you bring up the settings, you'll see that the elevation to the next is 2.45 meters. Okay, if you're working in millimeters, it'll be 2,450. What I like to do is make this number really big. It just means, again, that no object is going to be a smart ass and try and go higher than what the height is to the next floor. Again, you are probably not a big issue, and it's just more really for your own safety. And so in this case, I'm going to make it 50 meters. I think our terrain's about 30 meters at the most, so I shouldn't have anything above it. I could make that whatever I like. I could make it 5 kilometers. It doesn't really matter. But it just means that if there is any object that's quite smart, sometimes stairs will go and make themselves like a little dotted line because it's gone into the next floor. And so if we're sitting at the 25-meter contour, well, then everything's going to be above and it's all going to go a bit haywire. And so it just gets rid of any confusion. All right. So we're all set. If you wanted to, you could save this as blank document and use it in the future, or save it as a template, but we're going to talk about templates sometime in the future. So, what next, Zane? So we've changed our units, we've got rid of those elevations, got rid of any extra stories. In the future, I'd probably show you how to get rid of any extra layouts, but we're not going there for this assignment. We could create a new template from this, but we'll do that later. So we're ready to go. What we need to do is get our drawing, that little bit of A4, into ArchiCAD. So we're going to go File, External Content, Place External Drawing. And this could be anything. Okay, it could just be a photo of the site. I don't know why you'd do that, but it could be. Maybe you're an aerial photographer and you went skydiving and took a photo of your site and you want to throw that in there, by all means do. It could just be some photos for reference. You know, you might, okay, I'm going to draw up a side of this building, I've got a photo of it, I might just import it and throw it in there in the corner just so I can see what it looks like. I don't know. It could be anything. Place external drawing. Now, you should have copied it to the documents. So we're going to go Documents and select our site and go Open. Cool. I'll do it again. So I'll just go Undo. File, External Content, Place External Drawing. Select my file that I want to insert. You can see that it can insert all sorts of things. Okay, PDFs, even AutoCAD documents. So that'd come through as lines and fills and things like that. Other ArchiCAD projects even. So I could actually bring in another ArchiCAD document and place it into this one. So I might have spent a bit of time doing a long drop or something, and I want to use it in another project, so I could place it into this project and put it into the back. Okay. You're going to see how this flow of data is really important, especially with the final assignment. We're going to be building lots of modules and then reusing the same module. So you can build like one little house in one ArchiCAD document and then create a new ArchiCAD document and go and place that house 500 times. You go back to the original file, edit it, and then the other one will edit all 500 of them. Cool? Very powerful stuff. You imagine a drawing office, then you can have lots of people working on lots of different things and somebody having a master plan that's got everything that everybody's working on. There's hundreds of ways of working in ArchiCAD, but you can kind of see the power of it all. Okay, so select the file, go open. All right. Now, you can see this is at 1 to 2,500. However, this is a 2 meter grid. So that makes it a very, very, very large A4. So it hasn't come through its scale. Now, I could change the dimensions of this image to be A4 and then scale it up 2,500 times. But I'm probably playing with fire when I do that because I'm not 100% sure what will happen. However, I could go into Algae and measure a distance in here and then tell ArchiCAD what that distance is. So this is by far the best option. Okay? So here I've got over here Algae, or algae, or whatever you want to call it. Now I'm just going to zoom in on our site, which is down here somewhere. Turn on my aerial photo. Now, what I want to do, I'm just going to flick over to my image here. I want to identify 2 objects or 2 points on this map and measure that distance, right? These 2 points want to be as far away from each other as possible. Now, the reason for that is if I measure something. So say this morning, I've seen a student go, our car's about 4 meters long. Go click, click, and then scale the drawing and say that's 4 meters long. But there's so many ways that is a bad, so many reasons that's a bad idea. For one, I haven't got that many pixels representing my car, so whatever the size of my pixel is already introducing an error. Okay, so if I've got 1 meter pixels, that means that I can only be accurate to 1 meter. Okay, I can't get any more accurate than that. If I click on the edge of a building, it could actually be a bit further south or a bit further north by a meter because of the size of my pixels. Also, if I go and start to multiply that error out, by the time I get to the other side of my drawing, I could be hundreds of meters out. And it was an estimate. Cars aren't all exactly 4 meters long, even if you look it up in a book. All right. So I want to get 2 points that are as far away from each other as possible. So I'm thinking maybe this service station here, or perhaps this red car. Okay, it's the same data set, so I should be fine doing this. If it was, my aerial photo was from Google Earth and I'm measuring it in Algae, obviously the distance that 2 cars are apart is probably a bad idea, unless it's an abandoned car that's been parked there for several years. I want to try and find the corner of a building, but even then I'm still playing with fire because the 2 images might be slightly different. This is really the only time that we're introducing an error into our project. So we want to try and get this as accurate as we can, because everything from this point onwards is going to be very accurate. However, our image and importing it and scaling it, there is an error involved. Okay. So let's go back to Algae and we're going to measure, where's it? There's that pole there. Just move that down a little bit. And there's the service station. Hang on, I'll just zoom in a bit more. Can't zoom in that far. You might be able to though. Okay. Under Tools, we have Draw and Measure. I just want the straight line, and I'm going to click as close as I can to the bottom corner of that pool, and up to corner of that service station, right? Double click and it should finish. 732.4 meters, 35 rounds to 4. So 372.4. This morning we got it at 732.6. So we could average it out, I suppose. So I'm going to say 732.4. So, okay. Just watch me the first time through. I'll do this a couple of times. Just watch the first time. The Resize tool works the same for lots of objects. If it's a fill or some text or whatever it might be, it all works the same. What we have to do is we have to state a distance. So first I'm going to edit, reshape, resize, okay, or Command K. Now don't go into here and go, ah, look, I could just go 1 to 2,500, because that's not a measurement, that's a scaling factor, and that will be wrong. We're going to say define graphically. Cool, we'll go OK. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this really crudely. What I'm doing is I'm defining a distance, right? So from here to here. And then see, as I move my cursor, the image is getting bigger. So it's going, right, well, if from there to there is actually this long, it's just stretching everything. Okay, so I could just keep going out until the distance equals 730, or I can go D, 732.4, hit return, ping, and that's what I expect to happen. Okay, the picture got a whole lot bigger. We'll just fit this to view. Hang on, I can't see the bottom of my screen there. There we go. And I'm just going to grab like the wall or something and just click approximately in the same sort of area. It should be around 732. Yeah, that's about right. I just had to escape because I don't actually want a wall there. I'm just using it as a ruler. There is a ruler in there actually. It's just underneath window. That little ruler icon. Well, it does exactly the same thing. Yeah. 700 and... Oh, I'm not measuring from the same point, but you get the idea. I don't know why. I just always use a wall or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I don't think you can you do it with the slab? Not really, because it's two distances, isn't it? Bam. Yeah, 732. Cool. Escape. Okay, let's do it again. I'm going to do it right from the beginning as well, so I'm going to delete that. So we were... Actually, all right. Here's my origin there. File. External content. Place external drawing. Find my file. In this case, sports field. Hit open. Drop it down. Cool. Select it. Edit, reshape, resize, or Command K. It's a good one to remember, the Command K. You end up using it lots to fudge things and stretch them. Define graphically. Okay. If it was a wall I needed twice as big, I could just go in here and go make it 200% or 1 to 2, and it will go. Away it will go. Define graphically. Okay. Now this time I'm going to do it really accurately. I'm going to zoom all the way into this point. Okay, so about there is about as accurate as I can get. Okay, I can go back in my zoom history if I wanted to. Remember, all of these work, okay, but if you click somewhere, you're going to define a line, so you've got to be a little bit careful. The first few times you do it, you'll accidentally click somewhere, you've got to move the screen, and you, oops, click. Okay, so I need that corner of that pool, which is about there. Okay, so you can see I'm now resizing the document. D, 732.4, hit return. Excellent. Okay, just to check, if I grab a wall from about there to about there, should be 730 meters. Okay. Another thing as well, just to note, See my grid's disappeared? Because I've zoomed out so far, my 2 metre grid is too small, I can't see it. If your grid got really big, then you probably just put in 732 millimetres. You know, and so the drawing ended up smaller than your 2 metre grid. Okay? Or if it didn't change at all, somehow you hit escape or something, or maybe you double clicked when you should have single clicked, I don't know. But you want to try and get this bit as accurate as you can, so don't kind of just go, boom, 732 metres, because that error that you just introduced is going to be the error on everything that you do now. So we try and do this as accurately as we can. Just press D. 732.4. Sweet. So the corner of that, it actually looks like the covering over the BP. So from that corner there to the bottom right corner of the swimming pool. Okay. You don't have to do that. You could have done something else if you wanted to. Should be around about 730 odd metres long. Cool. If that's what you see, you have been successful. How long's the pool? Usually either 25 or 50 metres, isn't it? That one's about 22 metres long. I measured from that corner there of the service station on the other side of the creek to the bottom right corner of the swimming pool, and that was 732.4 metres. Okay. Now, no, I didn't talk about that. Okay, so has everybody managed to do that? Okay, so select it. Go Command K, which will, yep. Command K, that will bring up your resize.
I've done it.
Oh, you have done? I don't believe you. Mainly because if you have a look at your hit escape. Because see your grid, that's a 2 metre grid.
And that's a rectangle, and you said we couldn't do that.
And yeah.
That figures,
Yeah, so you go edit, reshape, resize, or Command K. Cool, we're going to go define graphically. I'll let you do this. Cool. Define graphically, okay. Now zoom right in without clicking anywhere. That's it. Keep going. Okay, so click on the top. Yeah, that's it. So click. Cool, and then go right the way down. That swimming pool. There it is. Cool, and go D. 732.4. Hit return. Boom. All sorted. So you can grab like a wall or something like that and just check to see if that is 730.
How do you get that little box with different
Yeah, if it disappears, see that little guy there?
Oh, yes, it does.
Brings it back up again. There must be some keyboard shortcut that makes it disappear, because I've done it as well, and I don't know what it is.
So I'm like, it worked.
That's all right.
What was the distance again?
732.4.
That's yes.
732.4. Or if you're in this morning's class, 732.6.
The same thing with Google Maps, measuring distances?
Yeah. Yes, you can. Yeah, there's a ruler in there as well. Yeah. Google's...
We've got to do something for...
Yeah. Google's a little less accurate. So if you've got the same site in the algae one, I'd use that.
Yeah.
Just because it's all corrected nicely. The Google one's a whole collection of aerial photos from all sorts of different sources. So they don't always say the same story, and you probably would have noticed over the years things sometimes move around a little bit. Yeah, as different data sets come in.
Just for...
Different. All right, so
like Matthew's class, we've got to make a map, show a map.
yeah. Yeah, so you can do exactly what we just did then. Yeah. All right. So has everybody got the map? You got the map in there? Okay. So we're going to put our mesh over it now. So select your mesh, select your image. Go edit, reshape, resize, or Command K. Yep, okay. That's all good. So it's saying define graphically. Okay. Yep, click OK. Zoom in to that corner. Okay, if you hold down the middle mouse button, don't left click because you'll. Yep, that's it. Okay, so you want to click on the corner of that. Oh, the corner of this like roof line here. See it right there? Yep. Okay, so now you're starting to draw a line. So now you can, if you go fit to view is probably the easiest. Yeah. And then zoom in the bottom right corner of that swimming pool. Yeah, zoom in there a little bit. Okay, too late. That's all right. So now you're resizing. See how that's moving the whole, making the whole picture a different size? So you go D. Oh, you're still in millimeters as well. So go D. In your case, 732 400. And then press enter. Cool. Just because you're working in millimeters. So let's go options. Project. Did you come in late?
No, I can't see all.
You should move closer to the computer if you're struggling to see. All looking good? Zoom right out. Okay, you haven't sized your image. Hey Matthew, can you just get his image up to the right size? Okay. All right. So, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pop a mesh over this whole thing. So you already know how to do that, and maybe you've beaten me to it. We want the mesh to be the same size as the aerial photo. So you're going to create a terrain model of the entire aerial photo there, including a little bit of Oakley Creek. Isn't that lovely? So, mesh tool. So you don't need anything selected, okay? Shouldn't have anything selected. I know I've got nothing selected as well because it says default settings up in the corner there. Now, remember when I talked about layers, I said you should always think about what you're going to draw and what layer you're going to put it on. So we're going to create a new layer called terrain. We could call it original terrain because the very last thing we're going to do in this project, we're going to make a couple of manipulations to the contours and calculate a change in volume. So we will actually have a modified contour model later on. So let's create a new layer. Go Command L. Where that is in here, I can't remember. Because Command L is so easy. Options, element attributes, layer settings. Command L. All right. And we're going to create a new layer called terrain. If you want to be sneaky, I'm sure you do, if you put a space in front of the layers you create, all of your layers will end up at the top of the list. So I don't know if that's good or bad practice. It's definitely handy. There is actually other ways of sorting this, but you just go OK, and then all your layers will always be at the top of the list and really easy to get to. If you wanted to, you could actually delete all of the layers that are in there, and perhaps you do that in the future. At the moment, I don't want to do that, but we will probably do it later on. Terrain. Oh, that's right, I said, let's call it original. All right. And I go, OK. Now, that doesn't mean I've changed anything. All I've done is I've created a layer. I haven't put anything onto that layer. So I'm going to change a couple of settings in here, actually. But first of all, we're going to change this to terrain. Okay, so there's terrain settings. You could also do it in here, same thing. Okay. Terrain original. So that means every mesh I draw from this point onwards will be on the layer terrain, original. Select the mesh. I'll go to the mesh tool. There. Yeah. You should see your... Oh, it might be at the bottom there. Terrain, original. All right. Now, we've created a new document, so none of this should have changed. The terrain should be sitting at 0. Okay, but if perhaps you'd been building a whole bunch of other stuff, you know, at the 5 meter contour, just make sure that our terrain is at 0. Remember this thing? We were talking about how the mesh works. We want it at 0 because all of our heights are above 0. So if I go and create a 25 meter contour, it's above 0. Our mesh is sitting at 0. So everything is nice and predictable. If my mesh was sitting 10 meters up, then my 25 meter contours would actually be 35 meters up. Okay? So, yeah. So, because we've created a new document, and it's the first thing that we've done, all the default settings are fantastic for us. There is one thing that we're going to come back and change, but I'm not going to let you know yet. All right. So, remember we've got different ways of drawing our terrain. We just want a square one. So we go square from this corner down to this corner. Beautiful. And if you are successful, your aerial photo will completely disappear. So, okay, so I'll do that again. Mesh, going on terrain original, square, shape, click, click. Remember, the first time you do this, it will be slow and cumbersome and confusing. The second time you do it, you'll do it in about 10% of the time. Do it again, it will be... Okay, you start learning keyboard shortcuts and you'll even be quicker. All right. What happened? Why did it turn green? If I keep zooming in on this thing, eventually I should see a little pattern. My terrain has a cover fill that looks like little bits of grass. When I zoomed all the way out, those little bits of grass are so tiny that my entire image just turns green, rather than trying to draw about 1 billion different little blades of grass. Now, the reason it's doing that is because my scale is wrong. Now, remember, scale doesn't really have much to do. We're always working at 1-to-1. However, things like text size and line weights and all that sort of stuff are very dependent on the scale. So it's trying to draw this if I printed it at 1-to-50. And you can see to fit this sheet of paper on my screen, I'm seeing 2.2% of the image. So obviously my scale is really wrong. So let's change that to 1-to-2000. Okay, because that should be about a good size on a bit of A3. Fit to view. And now I can see my blades of grass. Okay, that's all good, except I don't actually want to see blades of grass. I want to see my aerial photo. Does that make sense? And you can actually see here, 1-to-2000, it's at 103%. So that's well, except for my projector screen's a little bit deceiving. That should be about the same size as it prints. Probably on a bit A4 maybe, I don't know. That's very approximate. All right, what else do I have to do? Oh, just the bottom corner there. So it's got 1-to-2000, 1-to-50. Okay, so everybody got something that looks like that on the screen? So click on that. Yeah, that's 1-to-200. Change it to 1-to-2000. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can do that. But yeah, normally you'd change it down here. But yeah, that's fine. That's there's always more than one way to change things. Cool. Yeah, so that 1-to-50. Change it to 1-to-2000. It's actually quite handy. Same thing with text. Yeah, 2000.
Oh, keep changing that.
That's all right. That's fine. Yeah, because that's 1-to-2000 and 2%. So if you fit to view, boom. Okay, it's quite handy that, because if something like that happens, if your text ends up too small or too big, chances are your scale's wrong, and so then later on when you go to print, it's going to be wrong. You'll end up printing out about, in that case, probably about 50 bits of A3 to try and fit your drawing onto it all. So it's a nice little sort of like, you know, whoops, something's not quite right here. It's at 1 to 2,500 on an A4. Yeah, something like that. All right. We don't actually want to cover fill anyway, so I'm going to select my mesh, bring up its settings, which is Command T, or settings. So just arrow tool. If you just keep hitting escape, you'll go back to the arrow tool. And if I scroll down in here, you'll see things like the symbol it will have when it cuts through it. So when we do our cross sections, that's the symbol that we'll see in the fills. You can change it if you want. It's a bit of an odd colour anyway. It should be brown or something, you'd imagine, eh? But see here, it's got cover fill. If we just switch that off, and I go, OK, boom, we can see straight through our mesh. So we've got like an invisible mesh now. It'll still show in 3D, but in here we can just see straight through it. Oh, Command T is it. Or click that, or double click the mesh tool. Or some other way, I imagine, as well. Command T is very handy because you're going to bring up that lots of times. So it's a very good one to remember. Oh, so scroll down. So also if you're that floor and display, scroll down there a little bit and you see all sorts of things, including one that says cover fill. If you just uncheck it, yeah, and go OK. Sweet. You get that as well? All right. So we could have changed our cover fill so that the white was transparent and we had little blades of grass floating over our drawing, but it's much easier just to switch it off. We don't want it. We could have an empty fill for our cover fill as well. Again, pointless. Might as well just turn it off. Okay. So we've got our picture in there. It's all scaled correctly. We've got a mesh in there. The mesh is on the correct layer. It's on Terrain Original. So later on, if I make meshes for something else, I can differentiate between my two meshes. And we're also ready to add points to our mesh. So, as far as you guys know so far, unless you're in this morning's class, you select the mesh, go back to the mesh tool, and you can start adding points to this. Okay? And we can add new points and change their heights, etc., etc. Yeah. If I go to the poly tool here, then I can add like a whole bunch of points. If I zoomed in here, I could sit here going dig, 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 and add lots of points. Oops. Cool. But that's a horrible way of doing it. Okay? It means that if I need to edit this line, it's going to be a nightmare. If I completely hate that contour, I delete it, I'm going to have to redraw the entire thing. However, if you remember from Monday's class, there's a beautiful drawing tool called a spline, and we can use that to draw our contours. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the magic wand to follow the splines and create the points for me. This means I have a huge amount of control. I can control all sorts of things. And we're going to have a look at how the magic wand works in a little bit more detail. And we also get nice, beautiful, smooth splines that we can use for our drawings, which is very nice. And we can recreate a contour. If I go, don't really like that contour, I need to adjust it, I can delete the contour, adjust the spline, and recreate the contour from that spline again. So let's do that. Yes, I am. Very good. Command L. New layer, space, contours. Beautiful. Hit OK. I don't need anything selected. I need the spline tool. Whoops, where is spline tool? And that's going on to contours. Very, very good. You get an extra bonus point. Yep, so Command L, create yourself a new layer called Space Contours. And then go to your spline tool. So you don't need anything selected right now. Splines. Yep. And then change dock floor. Because we don't have anything selected, okay, like I mean we haven't selected a contour, and I've gone straight to the spline, I'm changing the default. So from this point onwards, every spline I draw will be on the contours layer. You might want to change the colour, but I wouldn't change it to orange because you won't be able to see it over the top of the other one. So blue will be just fine, thank you. Alright. There's lots of other settings, and there's line categories and stuff like that, but I don't even get into it. Alright. Now, when I draw my contours, I always go off the edge. So I always start outside of the mesh and go into the mesh, if I can. The reason I do that is that when I go and add the contour, it's going to run along that line until it hits the edge of the mesh. Okay, otherwise I'd have to get it bang on the corner of the edge of the mesh. And I like them running off the edge because that's what they're doing. They're going off the edge of the drawing, so if they don't all line up, you kind of get the idea, oh yeah, they'll kind of keep going. You can always trim them later if you wanted to. Now the secret here, it's a bit of a dark art. I usually find if you get it at the significant points of the curve, so the beginning of a curve, the middle of it, and the end of it, and so you can kind of see all these contours, a whole collection of curves. It's like a curve through here, then there's another curve, and there's another curve. So if I went click, 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 you want to try and get as fewer points as possible, okay? And sometimes you get real regular shapes, and you just go click, 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 and you get this nice curve going through it. If you make a mistake, don't panic, because we can just edit it later. So if you're going through and then you go, oops, don't worry, just keep going. Double click to finish. Hit escape so I can select it because I need my arrow tool. I can grab that point. I can either move him back into there or I can drag him to his neighbour to delete him. Move these around a bit. So this is why you don't want too many points, because otherwise editing the curve becomes a bit of a nightmare. Cool. Also remember that the contours on here aren't that accurate. In fact, some of them are just a load of lies. So, for example, going underneath buildings, that contour doesn't do that underneath that building. It is a lie. Okay? The computer has interpolated the terrain that it could see, and it's assumed that underneath that building it looks like that. However, in reality, it's probably actually running straight across the edge of the building, and then the foundations would drop down to a different height. So the 10 metre contour would not do that. It's impossible. Maybe if it had a dirt floor inside the building, or if it was on piles, I suppose, maybe. But don't assume that the contours are exactly accurate, especially under buildings and even under tree cover. And you can usually tell where it's interpolated because the contours are perfectly spaced apart. And it's like, okay, it's interpolated that. As soon as I get into the open, the shape of them change quite a lot. This one here looks quite different to this one here, which is very different to this one here. Because it's an open ground, it's getting a good range of spot heights all through here. Through here, who knows? Okay, so spline. I've actually got nothing selected. Spline, and just sit here drawing all your contours up. I'm just going to be rather crude about it. All of them. Oh my lord. Yes, you're going to get very good at drawing splines. If you make a mess of it, if you make a complete mess of it and it's being a real pain in the bum, sometimes it's easier just to delete it and do it again than it is to try and fix it. Oops. Oh, actually, this is a good example. See how I kind of accidentally clicked on the same spot? And so I ended my line. In this case, it's actually easier just to grab that curve, move the last point over here, and then add an extra point. Okay, I need to add an extra point to here as well. Add. Cool. I need to start moving these around until I get about the right shape. Beautiful. Okay, click on the line, you get the add. Click on the line, add. Move some points around if you have to, etc., etc. Now you could, especially in this forested area where the contours are exactly the same, you could actually skip a whole bunch of contours because the model's going to come out the same anyway. It's an even slope. However, it will come back to bite you because when you go and do your showing your plan view of your site and with your nice beautiful splines for contours, there's going to be a whole bunch of contours missing. So, it's like, okay, so you're going to have to end up doing them anyway. You can probably cheat, but you have to learn Illustrator for that. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to keep drawing. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, that's just because I want to show the whole process without taking 2 hours. You could though, yeah, you could quite easily actually just draw the 5 metre contours and model it all up and then later on come through and add more detail as you need it. Okay, if you're doing one like this, make sure that you're joining up. Okay, so it's a closed circle. Oops, sometimes that gets in the way. Again, you don't have to get it too accurate. Add a point there. Okay. Beautiful. Again, it doesn't really matter what the shape is under here because it's underneath the building anyway. Whoops. See here, I'm going to have to add another point. Get that over there. There we go. Alright, let's add. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to sidetrack a little bit and show you something that's very cool. There's a very nice little tool in here. So I'll just go into here. I'm just going to draw some fills. Okay, and then this one is going to be fire stripes. And I'm going to draw a line in here. Cool, and an orange line. Okay, so here's my amazing design. If I want to do another fill like this one, it's like, okay, so I go to my fill tool, right? I'd go to my settings, change the fill so that's the same pattern as that one, and I could draw another fill. Or, I can, so I've got nothing selected here. Doesn't actually matter if I have got something selected. Go Option. See how the Option key changes your cursor into a little eyedropper? If I click on this now, I can now draw another fill. Just like that. If I do another one like this, go Option click. If I want to do another orange line, I can go orange line. Thanks. If I need some more blue lines, another one of these fills, another one of these fills, etc., etc. Pretty cool. So I don't actually have to go through. If I've already set it all up, I can just hold down the Option key and suck the settings out of it. Because I didn't have anything selected, it's changed the default settings for the tool. So in this case, it's changed to, you know, a dark grey fill, and away I go. Let's say, though, this fill, oopsies, it was meant to be the same as this fill, right? So I can go Option, suck the settings out of this. If I add Command key to my mix, I go Option, Command. See how my cursor turns to a syringe? I can inject those settings into other objects. I can go Option and inject them back again. So I can say, oh, that line should be that colour. And that one should have been this colour. Okay, so Option will suck the settings out of something. Option, Command will inject them into something else. So it's very handy. So if I'm just like doing a bunch of contours, oops, no, sorry, I'm still there. So I'm just going to delete all this mess. Fit to view. If I need to do some more contours, instead of going to the spline tool, I can just go Option, click. Oops, get the spline zone. Option, click, and now I can just start drawing contours again. Oh, see, I've got a big mess over there. That's all right. I'll fix it shortly. Etc., etc. Okay, select that. Let's add an extra point and move him over there. There we go. Move him over there. I could change this to a B spline, one of those ones, and I'd get the Bezier handles. Maybe that's necessary, maybe it's not. Totally up to you. All right. So, let's draw some more of these. You're going to draw much more accurately than I am. You can be really, really crude and then just go back and add points where you need it. All right, so I've gone through and I've drawn all my contours. Okay, so has everybody got some contours on their screen? No? Okay, what I'll do is I'll go through this whole process and then you guys can have some time to work on it. Okay, got my mesh, got my contours. I now need to create points on my mesh using my splines to guide them, right? So normally I'd select my mesh, go back to the mesh tool, start adding my points. However, instead of me clicking, I'm going to use the magic wand, which is a space bar, and click on one of my splines. Okay, click, okay, click, okay, click, okay. I'm going to do the next one wrong. Okay, click, I missed the line. Okay, see how it did the next one for me for free? You might go, hey, check that out. Did the next contour for free. Me. Not cool. Because what it thinks is that this, because remember how the magic wand works? If you click in an area, it looks for what's around it. So what happened is I clicked on the area, it went, oh, there's a spline here, then there's the edge of the image, then there's another spline that goes out here. So what it's done is it's gone and created one big contour. So if I go through and go 20 meters, it's going to make both of them 20 meters. I go through to the next one, go 21 meters, makes both of them 21 meters. And it gets horribly confusing. You can't figure out why there's this big flat piece on your contour. So if you go to do the next one and it's already done for you, warning, you probably should go undo. And you can actually tell, see how the cursor changes? It actually used to change shape. For some reason in ArchiCAD 16 they've decided it just turns white. Okay. Cool. Actually, I think I missed it then. Okay. All right. Now this is all pretty boring because all I'm actually doing is creating a great big flat terrain. So now you can do this however, whatever order you like. You might want to go, draw a contour, add them to the terrain, change their elevation. Next one, draw the contour, add them to the terrain, change their height. Okay, I prefer going draw all the contours, add them all to the mesh, change all their heights. Okay, totally up to you. It doesn't make any difference. You could go back and draw some new contours and change, add them to the terrain.
So you changed from our contour thing when we were drawing when you changed it to terrain original before you started putting the points on.
Yes. I'm not 100% sure what you mean.
Where the eye is in the top corner, the little loopy eye now says terrain original. We have it on contours before we were drawing.
Oh, that was for the contour lines.
Yeah, probably.
Those splines. Yes, those splines. This is all part of the terrain.
Yeah, but so when we were putting the splines on, we were doing it on the contours.
Yeah.
Now when we want to do that, we need to swap that to the other terrain to actually put points on.
Yeah, it's quite important to understand these aren't contours. They're just splines in the shape of a contour, okay? They don't have any relationship to the terrain. If I move that or change the shape of that spline, I am not changing the contour, okay? The contour are these points that I'm adding now. In fact, you can see if I grab one of these points, right? Oops. And move it, that there is the contour, that blue line is the spline that I drew. All I am using those splines for is to cheat. Instead of me going click, 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 click a billion times, I'm saying follow the spline, and it goes zip and follows it all in one fell swoop. The advantage of this is that if I have to redo a spline because it was horrible and completely inaccurate, okay, don't get confused and think, oh, I can just go back here and adjust the spline. Okay, it's not related. See, the contour is still up here. However, you'll notice that you can, in fact, select the contour. Okay, so I've clicked on just that contour. You'll notice it says it's a mesh, but all the other contours haven't been selected. Just the one. And I can go delete, and I've now deleted that contour off my mesh. So if I select my mesh now, see it's got all these points, but it hasn't got this one anymore because I deleted it. And I can add it back to it. So select the mesh, go back to the mesh tool, magic wand my spline, okay, and it redoes them all. Does that make sense? So remember, the splines are just splines. They've got nothing, there's no real relationship to our mesh. I'm just using it to cheat. Instead of me drawing, I'm saying, follow this line, and away it goes. No different to you painting a line on the ground and say, dig a trench along that line. Okay, you can't then repaint the line and expect the trench to move. You could fill the trench back in and then redig it in the shape of it. But there's no relationship.
So all you do is choose the mesh and then space bar.
Yeah, so select your mesh. No, you haven't. Click on your mesh. Okay. Select tool, right. Select the mesh. No, that's a contour. Yep. Cool. And you can see you've got it selected. It says all selected and it's got the mesh there. Let's go back to the mesh. Then space click on your contour line or your spline. Go down a bit. Yep. Go undo, Command Z. Just because, yeah, inside it. That's cool. You go, okay. Cool. And then do the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
So is that creating lines from your spline layer onto your mesh?
Yeah, so it's creating points on your mesh by following that spline.
From a different layer?
Yeah. Well, from a different object. In this case, a line. It could be a slab or anything, really. Okay, I just want to talk about things that can go wrong. The number one thing that can go wrong is you don't have your mesh selected and you go to the mesh tool and magic wand a contour. Now, what happened is I just created a brand new mesh.
Ah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Okay, so make sure you're selecting the mesh because we want to change the mesh. Okay, the computer doesn't just go, oh, hang on, I see you're adding a contour to that, so you probably want me to add it to this one. No, it just goes, oh, okay, you had the mesh tool selected, you magic wanded a shape, I will draw you a new mesh. So make sure you've got the mesh selected, otherwise you'll end up with lots of them. Now, we've got a nice advantage here because we should only ever have one mesh at this stage of the project at least. So if I went, because sometimes it's not that obvious, if I went to the mesh tool and went Command A, it will select all meshes. And you can see I've got 2 selected. So that's when you go, ah, hang on, I shouldn't have 2 meshes, I should only have 1 mesh. What's going on? And you can usually figure it out. Okay, you can say, oh, there's another mesh in there. What the hell? Okay, and I have seen that's definitely the number one thing that will go wrong, and I can almost guarantee at least one person will do it, possibly 10. Okay, and it's easy just to think you had it selected and go through and magic wand all your splines. You'll quite often get an error as well. I was kind of convenient, you can make that shape, but if I magic wanded this one, an error comes up because the shape doesn't make any sense to it. You'll see it ends up with this crazy shaped mesh, where the beginning crosses over the end and it makes no sense. Okay, so select the mesh. Oh, I've got to deleted my mesh at some point. Here it is. Delete that one. Okay, select the mesh, go back to the mesh tool, and then space click. Yeah, and that should always come up. If that doesn't come up, again, you've probably done something wrong. Okay, another thing that you could possibly do wrong is if you go and click outside of here, it'll go, well, what are you trying to do? You're not trying to add points. I'll go and create a new mesh for you. Okay, so you should always see that little thing pop up and say, hey, do you want to add points to the mesh? Yes, I do. Or do you want to create a hole? That little dialog box. That should always show up. If you don't see that, warning. Is there anything else you can do wrong? Pretty much not. So it's just select mesh.
So we're going to add all things just like that.
Yeah.
So we go back to the wrong layer. Back into the contours.
Oh yeah, so select, so just remember that the layer is just for that mesh, so that's cool. You just change it to terrain original. Right?
So will it know that the points are on the
Yeah.
wrong layer?
No, because the points are on the mesh, and the mesh is on the layer. Okay, so this is like one object.
Okay.
So it's like as if I've given you a bit of polystyrene and you're drawing on it.
Okay.
You can't separate the contours out from the object. You can't pull those out and put them somewhere else.
So why am I drawing on 2 layers? Why am I having the contours there?
Because
Oh,
these
so the
splines,
live on
yeah,
the contours layer, but the points live
Yeah.
on the mesh layer.
because in the future you're going to have.
Across all those other funny places?
Oh, I see. So in this case, it's actually quite easy because if we go splines, Command A, you'll select all splines. Command A on the keyboard. Okay, so we've selected all of our splines,
Yeah.
and at this stage it's easy. And just go right. All of our splines are contours.
Yeah.
Okay. If you had other ones that were like the outline of some garden or
Yeah.
your signature
So
in the bottom corner, then
and I just haven't noticed up there.
yeah, or you selected one and changed it.
Okay, so now on the terrain original, how do I go back and find all my points again and go through them?
Yeah, I'm just. So also, if you don't have anything selected and you see go to spline, so if I was to draw another contour, it's going to be on there. The default settings are for that.
So I put it back on the contours.
Yeah, that means that you don't have to think about it again. Every spline you draw from this point
Lines are
onwards,
long contours.
yeah, until you eventually change the default setting.
Right.
Yeah. So if I change it to another layer, then from that point on, I'll be on a different layer.
Okay.
Okay, if you select an existing one, see it says default settings. If you select one though, it says all selected 1. It doesn't say default settings. If I change that layer, it doesn't, anything I start drawing again will be whatever the default is.
So when I'm putting those points on, I need to make sure that I've gone back to...
No.
I don't need to make sure I've
No,
gone back
because
to...
you'd just change the default setting for splines.
Oh. So say I've finished all my splines and I'm going back to my mesh.
Yeah, you just select it. Gary, it's a little bit different to Photoshop. You're not changing layers. The object is kind of grouped into layers. It's not, you're not having to go to a different layer. You're selecting an object and editing it. This object has lots of settings, including the layer that it's on. You're actually overcomplicating the situation.
I am, that's what I think.
Yeah, you don't. Okay, all these things belong in certain places.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this thing, a layer is just a group of objects.
Yeah.
Right. So the context, the contour lines are just a group of objects.
Yeah.
That
So
that layer is that group of objects. So I could go and collect just that group of objects and shift them if I wanted.
exactly.
Right. So they're like a group of chairs.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. So a group of objects, as opposed to Photoshop, which is like a sheet of acetate with
Where you
things
just
on
lay
it.
things up, yes,
Yeah.
you
So
can
then you do have
stuff.
to, you do it because you're changing where you're working.
Yes. Whereas
Yeah.
this one, they're all sitting on the floor, and I'm just picking up a group of objects and
Yeah, yeah.
shuffling them around on the same piece of floor.
Yeah, sort of. Well, they're just all grouped together in some way,
Okay. So
like chairs and tables. Yeah, I can put a chair on top of the table and another chair under the table. They're still chairs and tables.
yes.
Yeah.
And I can pick them up separately.
Yeah. However, in ArchiCAD, the objects,
Right.
some on the chairs layer, some on the tables layer.
Right.
So that's how you're kind of separating the objects out.
This is actually what we need to be doing.
This is what you're going to be doing for the next week, at least. Just adding contours.
So we're going to do every single one of these contours.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, I need to keep moving. We need to talk about the magic wand settings. Okay, and the number of nodes that this thing's producing. Now, you'll notice at the moment, it's not too bad, but it's probably because I've been a bit crude. But in some areas, I'm going to end up with way too many little nodes. Okay, so that's these little points here. Now, actually, I don't know if this has actually changed or not. No. If I go, now I'm just going to do this off to the side here because the magic wand settings are pretty cool. You can do all sorts of awesome things with it. I'm just going to draw a circle here for a second. Okay, so here's my circle. All right. If I magic wand the circle, so notice, if I select the circle, oh, it's got 4 points. Normally it has 2. Anyway, if I select the circle, it's got these 4 points that are running around it. Actually, that's kind of weird. Why did it do that? Interesting. Anyway, I get the line tool. I can magic wand a line to my circle. Okay? So there's my circle and there's my arc, which is actually, oh, there you go. It's actually 2 lines curved. Okay, I can actually grab this line and move it if I wanted to. If I can get the right one. Remember the tab will go through. Okay, so there's my line that I've magic wanded to it. Okay, let's just illustrate this a bit clearer. Options, magic wand settings. See this over on the right hand side? It says here, give preference to linear segments or best match. That's its tracing method. If I change this to linear segments, go OK, and I magic wand the circle with a line. Now, look at this. These are actually lots of segments of lines running around the outside. Now, there's some rules that the magic wand is abiding. Okay, at the moment, it's not allowed to deviate from a curve any more than 0.04 of a metre or 4 centimetres. Okay, so that means whatever the curve does, it's got to try and fit these bits of line in there, and it's got to keep within 4 centimetres. If I change this to 2 metres, I'll just go undo and do it again. So I might just change my line colour to orange so we can see it a bit clearer. Ching! It's now allowed to deviate up to 2 metres away from the curve. Remember, this is a 2 metre grid. So that means it's going, oh yeah, sweet, I can go straight from here to there. I'm within 2 metres, so I'm fine. Okay, let's go, maybe not quite so badly. Let's go half a metre. Try that out. Cool. Okay, so I'm converting this circle into nice linear segments. Now we could do the same thing. So I'm at half a metre now, right? With the magic wand settings for our, hang on, I might just delete one of these contours. Something that's got like a bit of detail in it would be nice. Okay, this one here will do. I should be able to. It is sometimes very tricky to get the actual contour. There it is. Delete. Okay, so select the mesh, go back to the mesh tool, magic wand. Yep. So now it's got a different set of rules. It's allowed to deviate up to half a metre. And if I zoom in here, you can actually see how the line is actually not bang on the spline. However, the advantage of this is that I get less points, which makes it easier to manipulate. It also gives the computer a lot less work to do. Now, there's no right or wrong setting for this. It totally depends on the terrain you're working on. If you had a terrain that the contours were almost entirely straight, in fact, let's say they were straight, the deviation is going to mean that I can put a contour point, a node at one end of the contour and one at the other end of the contour. Nothing else deviates from it. However, that means I haven't got much detail in my model. If I start trying to add other stuff, it's going to produce a horrible, ugly model. If I have too many points, and I go magic wand and it just turns completely thick and black with little nodes all over it, the computer's going to have a heart attack every time I try to go into 3D because it's trying to produce an overly detailed model. And later on, we're going to start doing some very complicated math, or at least for the computer, to this. And if the model's really, really complicated, you get unexpected results. Maybe the computer crashes. It just can't deal with that amount of detail. So you just have to tweak the settings until you get a nice spacing of points. It also means that editing this, if I decide, actually I just need to edit this a little bit, it's not a big deal. I can kind of move these points around. Okay, remember I'm moving the points on the terrain. The spline is still sitting out here. It's good practice to move the spline as well so that they're saying the same story, because if I go and print out my splines as my nice beautiful contours, but they're actually in a slightly different position to where I've just moved the points on my terrain, telling a different story. So it's good practice to then make the spline say the same story. And you will occasionally have to do this, especially when you get into really tight corners. Sometimes the points get too close to each other and you've got to space them apart a little bit. Sometimes you have to add a few extra little points in there just so you get better shape. We're going to do that next week. We're going to start refining this mesh and getting it exactly right, getting things like little creeks and ridge lines and stuff like that in. But at this stage, you just want to make sure you're not getting too many points, and enough to give some detail. You can see when it's going straight, I'm losing detail here. So, what other methods have we got then? Well, let's just go back to our circle. Where are you, circle? There it is. Okay. Let's go back to our circle, and I'm going to magic wand another line to it. But this time I'm going to say I want segment lengths of 2.5 meters. And go, each one of these segments is 2.5 meters long. Now this is really cool. It means that you can do things like, you get sheets of plywood of 1200 by 2400. You might want to build a fence that's all wobbly and curvy. So you go, right, I need a sheet of 12, that's going to be 1200 wide, then I've got a fence post on either end, so that's maybe 100 mil thick. So that means I have to add an extra 100 mil, so that's 1300 spacings between each fence post. Excellent. Yeah, you could go through there and measure with your compass 1300 across the curve, or you just go in here to the magic wand, get your line, set it to 1300, magic wand, as I've done 2.5 meters. So each one of those segments is 2.5 meters. I can now pop my posts on the corners, and I've drawn up some big complicated curvy shape, and I can do it in seconds. So it's a really cool tool. All right. So you can go lop, lop, lop. There's my little posts. Although I'd have to orientate them nicely, but anyway. So that's one option. So that would be really good. Remember the example I was saying with the contours that were dead straight? If I set this to be every 2.5 meters, it means I'd get a little node every 2.5 meters. So I could then get lots of detail into my model. So let's go with that setting. Let's see what a contour every 2.5 meters looks like. So if I grab this one here, I'm going to delete that. I didn't delete my whole mesh, did I? No. Select the mesh, back to the mesh tool, space, click. Okay. Probably too many points. That's all right. Let's just go undo. Objects, magic wand settings. Let's make it every 15 meters. Space, click. Cool. Not too bad. I'm getting a lot more detail through the straight areas. I'm losing a bit in here. And it might just be a case of, well, I'm so close, but let's just add that point. Boom. Yeah. Do I need it anywhere else? Oh, maybe over here. Okay. So now I've got really nice spacing between all my contours, all my nodes, and I can just add a little bit of extra detail. Again, it totally just depends on your project, the scale you're working at, the shape of the contours. You know, wobbly contours, if you use the deviation method, you're going to get a lot more detail in curves, but less detail in straight areas. You use the technique I've just done there with the distance between them, you're going to get a lot more detail across the straighter areas, but you might end up with not enough detail in the curved bits. So it's just a playing game. And actually one I forgot to show your classmates this morning. So back to my little circle over here. Let's say I want to produce a pentagon. Not a problem. I just go to the magic wand setting. See the segments across a circle is 5. And I just go line, space click, ching. 5. So it's just gone and divided that circle into 5 and added the lines to it. All good? So you can actually use the magic wand for lots of other cool stuff. I could actually, let's see what happens if I do that. This is a little bit more complicated because the spline, if you remember, isn't like lines and circles. So exactly what will happen I do not know. Select my mesh, back to the mesh tool, space, click. Actually, that worked pretty damn fine. Okay, I'm still getting a better resolution through here, and I'm still getting good curve resolution in here. Cool.
That was telling it how many segments.
Yeah, I want 5 segments to every arc. Yeah. That projector's looking really faded, eh? I have to grab the remote. Yeah, it probably is. Yeah. All right. Have I covered everything? That's everything I showed this morning, isn't it? Yeah. You can watch the other video and see if I'm wrong. And you can tell them if they want to see how to make a pentagon out of a circle, they can watch your one.